Just 39 breaches exposed over 1.5 million healthcare records in 2020 alone. That's a jarring number regardless of which side of healthcare you're on. From the patient's standpoint, you're likely wondering how less than 50 companies have access to that many files. Something doesn't add up. On the facility side, your thoughts differ based on the type of healthcare manager that you are. A passive manager wouldn't think much of that statistic. They might think that their compliance ecosystem is perfect and a breach couldn't possibly happen to them. The proactive manager, though, understands the significance of that number. As a result, they reassess their cybersecurity and compliance policies. They also know that HIPAA breaches aren't a matter of if they'll happen, it's a matter of when. Pre-breach preparedness involves getting ready for what many cybersecurity experts view as the inevitable. During this step, managers are ensuring that they're compliant with all of HIPAA's requirements, providing training to their workforce, and putting into place the proper response protocol. One of the most often overlooked aspects of the pre-breach preparedness step is creating HIPAA breach notification letter templates. Hi everyone, I'm Matt from eTactics, and today I'm going to give you 5 effective HIPAA breach notification rule letter templates. Before we get started though, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel by clicking the button below. While you're down there, hit that alert bell icon next to it as well, so when we post new helpful content, you get notified. Now before giving you templates, we need to understand what's required by law. The HIPAA breach notification rule is the specific portion of the law that requires this type of letter. In a nutshell, it states that if something happens that leads to a breach of protected health information, the covered entity and/or business associate needs to tell those affected. There are a few different types of notifications that fall under this portion of the law, including individual notice, media notice, and notice to the secretary. Individual and secretary notice are both required regardless of the size of the breach that occurs. Meanwhile, media notice only needs to happen if a HIPAA breach is affecting 500 or more individuals. Individual notice, you have 60 days following the discovery of the breach. For media notice, you have 60 days following the discovery of the breach, and it affects 500 or more individuals. Notice to the secretary, 60 days following the discovery of the breach, and it affects 500 or more individuals. The first HIPAA breach notification letter example I have for you is what we'll call the true template. This sample I'm showing you comes from the credible HIPAA organization. It exists as a shell of what its final format would look like, but contains placeholders throughout it. These placeholders make your incident response efforts easy. If a HIPAA breach occurs at your organization, time isn't on your side. It might seem like 60 days is plenty of time to draft a professionally formatted letter that informs your affected patients about what happened, but it really isn't. The bottom line is that this template is built to save you time. The second example I have for you is actually a website notice. You see, the HHS requires that if a covered entity doesn't have accurate contact information for 10 or more clients, they need to provide notice on their website or utilize another form of public media. There are multiple ways to accomplish this type of letter notification, but the best way is by providing the details within a devoted webpage. This next example comes from a security incident that TimeHop experienced in 2018. Before I go any further, I know what you're thinking. This example isn't a HIPAA violation. Now, although you're correct on that, focus on the format itself. You see, TimeHop's notification letter is a perfect example of what it should look like on your website if you experience a breach. Of course, the content provided is going to be different on your website, but if you created a template letter similar to the example that I gave you earlier, all you have to do is copy and paste it into an electronic format. The third letter I have for you is the social media example notice. With how younger generations prefer their healthcare experience, it wouldn't be a surprise if your healthcare organization sees more activity on the social web than on its website. If that scenario describes you, then posting a social media notice regarding your breach is a must. Guard.me provided a great example of a breach notification letter that's formatted for digital sharing. Now, I said digital sharing because the notification you post on social media shouldn't be exclusive to those platforms. You can also include a well-formatted image announcement in your email newsletter. If you do choose to or have no choice but to make a digital announcement regarding a HIPAA breach, you should include text and imagery in what you share. After all, social media posts that include an image receive 2.3 times more engagement than those that don't. The fourth example I have for you is an email notice. Since we already know that patients now prefer paperless billing, it's safe to say that they're active on their email account. You see, in most cases, paperless billing means that the notification gets sent via email. So if your patients are already receiving billing communications from you, it makes sense to inform them of any breaches in the same way. The example image I'm giving you right now is a security breach notification letter received by the stock trading company Robinhood. As you can see, the email isn't a graphical masterpiece, and it doesn't have to be. When a breach occurs in any capacity, the only things that those affected care about are what happened, was my information affected, and how can I protect myself. Fifth and finally is a phone call and or voicemail breach notification letter. You see, part of the HIPAA breach notifications requirements is to include a toll-free phone number. It needs to stay active for at least 90 days following the breach. It's practically the same requirement from earlier regarding public websites and media posting. I'll admit that leaving a HIPAA-compliant voicemail is an entirely different animal, but a breach notification voicemail is a little bit different. In this case, you can inform your affected patients without giving any compromising information over the phone. All you and your team have to do in this case is give your patients a phone call and tell them what happened. Explain what's at risk and what they can do to figure out if they were a victim and how to protect themselves. Now, after watching this video, you definitely know that notifying your patients that you experienced a HIPAA breach is a requirement, in case you didn't know before. However, understanding that that is a requirement placed on your organization isn't the hard part. It's figuring out the best way to do it and having a plan in place before the breach occurs that's difficult. Now, of course, even after I've given you all of these effective examples to notify your patients of a breach, you likely still have one question remaining. What is the most effective template? The answer to that question is to use a mix of all of them. Cover your bases by communicating what happened effectively across multiple platforms and mediums. If you'd like to learn more about HIPAA compliance, reach out to eTactics. And you already made this far into the video, so you might as well like it, share it, and comment below. What are you waiting for? Subscribe to our YouTube channel.